Resourceful Designer, episode 282. You're worth more than you're charging. Here's why.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now your host, who has more business ideas than he'll ever be able to implement, Mark DeCote.
Yep, if only one of those business ideas was a way to manufacture more time, I'd be golden. Oh well. In this week's episode, I'm going to explain why you're probably not charging enough for the services you offer, and tell you how to rectify it. But before I get to that, I just want to remind you that the Resourceful Designer community will soon be opening. In fact, if you're listening to this on the day I release this episode, the community reopens tomorrow on February 1st. So you still have time to get your name on the waiting list or the notification list, because I'm going to send out a special bonus to everybody who signed up while the community was closed. Now, if you're not sure why you may want to join the community, just let me tell you, it is a wonderful group of designers, like-minded people who are in a very similar position to you. They all want to grow and improve their design business. Now, the community is going very strong with lots of conversations going on. We have so many different channels to have conversations in. Some to talk about illustrations, some to talk about acquiring clients, some about pricing, some about the tools we use. We talk about web design, about graphic design. We have channels where we can critique each other's work. And just newly added was accountability, where people will check in on each other within the community, just to make sure that everybody is keeping up with what they want to do to accomplish their goals. Now, I know that working from home by yourself can get lonely at times, and it's great to have friends and family to talk to, but they often don't understand where you're coming from. And that's why the community is so valuable, because everybody inside understands you. They know what you're going through, and they're there to help if you need it. Now, if you're interested in giving the community a try, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community and join. And now, you're worth more than you're charging. And here's why. I want to start off with a story. About a dozen or so years ago, I was hired by a client who is a business coach, and he had just finished writing his second book. And he wanted me to design and format it for him to get ready for publication. The project also included an accompanying bookmark that he wanted to sell with the book, as well as a small website related to the book. Now, I'd given him a quote for the project, which he readily accepted, and we got the project underway. And once the project was completed, everything was done and paid for, this business coach told me how impressed he was working with me. He said that everything went so smoothly that he would have paid 3 times the amount for the great work that I provided him. Now, I initially brushed this statement off as hyperbole from a grateful client. I mean, how many times have you received great service somewhere and thought to yourself, I would have paid more for that? I know I have. But then the client told me that he was not exaggerating, and proceeded to explain why he thought that way. And what he told me next changed the way I regard pricing, and it affected the way I quote projects from that day forward. Now, I'll get to what he told me in a moment. One of the most difficult tasks that freelance designers or design business owners have to make is determining what to charge for their services. I mean, how much does a website cost or a logo cost? It's such an arbitrary thing. It's like saying, how long is a piece of string? There's no right or wrong answer. And it never fails. Whatever number you come up with for a design project, you will always wonder if it's too little or too much. Well, let me put your mind at ease on one of those fronts. Too much is never the correct answer to that question. And I'll explain why in a bit. Coming up with the right fee to charge is so difficult because there are so many factors to consider. Your level of experience will influence what you charge. The quality of the work you do is also a factor. The type of clients you work with can have a huge effect on your pricing. If you're working with big corporate clients, you should be expected to charge more than if you're dealing with small startups or mom and pop shops. Where you live, the city, the state or province, the country can all play a part in your pricing structure. Even your culture may affect what you charge. And with everything to consider, it's no wonder the pricing is such a highly debated topic among designers. One designer may think that $2,000 is an awful lot to charge for a website, while another designer won't consider even taking on a web project for less than $10,000. What I'm getting at is, again, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to how much you should charge for your design services. You need to charge what you think you're worth. But that's exactly what I want to talk about. What you're worth. Because there's a very good chance that you are undervaluing that number. Let me ask you a question. How much do you think it would cost if you had to pay someone else to do your job? If you think it would cost more than what you are currently charging your clients, then there's your answer right there. You're not charging enough. However, you might think that it would cost a very similar or maybe even a lower amount to what you are charging your clients. And that may be true. It's really hard to tell. But let me rephrase my question. How much do you think it would cost if you had to pay individual people to do everything you do for your clients? Now it gets more complicated. Let's take a web project, for example. We tend to group all the services we offer together into one easy-to-explain package and offer it as web design. And then we slap a price on it. Web design costs this much. But what exactly goes into a web design project? Let's break it down. Now, of course, everyone will have their own way of working on a website. So this is just a simplified example to kind of get my point across. Before a website project, you'll probably start things off with some form of discovery meeting, something to determine exactly what the client needs and what problem the website is going to solve. With whatever that entails determined, you and the client now need to settle on a proposal and sign a contract. You are working with a contract after all. Now, once all of that's out of the way, you'll get down and start doing some research. You'll look into what others in the client's industry are doing, especially your client's direct competition. And you may research adjacent industries as well, maybe even some unrelated industries. You may search for new and innovative ways to meet your client's needs. This research can take a lot of time. Now, with all that info that you've gathered in hand, next, you may start wireframing or thought mapping out the website, figuring out the best structure and the hierarchy to use for the whole thing. Then you'll start the design. You'll choose a color palette, font choices, styles, image aesthetics, and all the other visual elements that go into a website. Who knows, maybe you'll need animations or video. After all, the client wants their website to pop, don't they? Next, there's development. The nitty-gritty of connecting all those pieces together so that you have a functioning website. Now, this may involve more research as you look into plugins and third-party solutions to help you build your client's site. Things like sales funnels, e-commerce platforms, email lists, calendar scheduling tools are just a few things that may be incorporated into the build. Then, of course, the client wants the website to be found by their customers, so you'll do your best at implementing SEO strategies to help with findability. And then once the website finally launches, everything is complete, you'll send your last invoice and you'll get paid for that project. Whew, good job. You just worked your butt off and everything worked out great. The client got the website they wanted and you got paid the fee you quoted for this website project. But back to my question. How much do you think it would cost if you had to pay individual people to do everything you just did? Let's see. You would have to hire a salesperson for the initial contact, probably the proposal and contract signing. Next, you'd need to hire somebody to do research for the discovery and all the other investigating you did. Then, of course, you would need a UX designer and a UI designer. One of them to create the feel and flow of the website, make sure that it's easy to navigate and all that. And the other one to design the aesthetics of the site, how natural and attractive it is. After that, you'll need a developer to put all that information together. Someone who knows how to take that information that came out of the UX and UI designers' minds and put it into action. Along the way, you'll need an SEO person, somebody to make sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, to give the website the best chance to be discovered by those searching the web. And then you would need a bookkeeper or account person to handle the invoicing and payment processing. And on top of all these people, you would probably need a project manager, somebody to oversee this team of yours in order to help keep the project on track and deliver on schedule. Wow, that's a good group of people there. 8, if my math is correct. So how much do you think it would cost if you had to hire each of these individual people to work on this job instead of doing everything yourself? Chances are it would cost way more than what you charged your client for their website project. And hold on, I haven't even taken into consideration the profit for your design business. After all, you took on this project to make money, didn't you? So after paying all of these people for their services, there still needs to be some money left over for you to have made a profit. Do you see where I'm going with this? When your client hired you to design a website, they in effect hired all of these people. You acted as a project manager, a researcher, a UX and a UI designer, a developer, an SEO person. Plus, you took on the roles of salesperson and account person. So why should your client get such a good deal because all of these people encompass one single body, yours? The answer is they shouldn't. And that's the big mistake that so many freelancers and design business owners make. When they determine their prices, they fail to take into account every specialty that they bring to the table. You need to start thinking of yourself as a team of individuals. Each one of you has its own special abilities. And when you look at it that way, you can see why you should be charging much more for your services. And that's what that business coach client told me all those years ago. For his first book, he had hired a page layout person to format the pages for his book. He also hired a graphic designer to design the cover for the book as well as the bookmark. And he hired a web designer to create the website for him. Each of these people did their part in the project and was paid separately. And the total fee for all 3 of them came up to almost 3 times what I had charged him to do everything myself. So when he saw my quote that I gave him, he knew he was getting a steal of a deal. He told me that by lumping everything I do under one umbrella of, well, it's all part of designing a website, I was doing myself a big disservice. I was undervaluing all the individual skills I brought to the table. He said that only when I started thinking about what, or perhaps who, is required for each individual part of a design project, will I start realizing how much value I bring, and I should start charging accordingly. Because every small part of any design project you do, there is an individual out there that specializes in doing just that one thing. And they're charging good money for it. Now, I could tell you from that day forward, I started charging more for what I do. And that is probably the leap point where I grew from a small one-man show to being a design studio or a design agency. Even if it was just me, that's when I made the big leagues. Now, before I go, I'd like to ask you to do something for me. Think of the last design project that you did for your client and how much you charged them for it. Now, take out a pad and a pencil and break down that price into the individual roles that you performed in order to complete that project. How much did each quote-unquote person get paid? And don't forget, you need to leave enough for your profit. Now, I have a feeling that if you do this small exercise, you'll realize, just like I did way back then, that you are not charging enough for all the services, all your knowledge, all your skills that you bring to the table. And I'm hoping that this is incentive enough for you to stop undervaluing yourself and start charging what you're worth. And that's all I wanted to say. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you got some value out of this one. Very important lesson about charging what you're worth. Now, just a quick reminder again, Resourceful Designer Community is going to be opening again as of tomorrow if you're listening to this when the podcast episode drops. If you're listening to it in the future, it's probably open right now, so head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/community and join today. So I talked today about how you as an individual actually form a team of a bunch of different skilled people for your clients. Next week, I'm going to grow that even more and discuss how you can actually form a physical team of multiple people to help grow your business. Until then, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.